Good evening and very warm welcome to the Oxford Martin School very distinguished lecture by Garry Kasparov. It's a real pleasure to see so many of you here, and I do apologize to those that are outside, and do please tell your friends. I'm sorry we could not find a venue big enough in Oxford to take the over 880 people that wanted to come to hear Garry, and it's an acclaim to you, Garry, that you draw that sort of interest. It's a very special occasion for us, and we are videoing it, so please also tell those that haven't been able to get in that it should be on our website on Monday, early next week, so they can see that. Garry came to Oxford last November to engage in a debate that the Oxford Martin School hosted about innovation and about the question as to what will accelerate innovation and how do we make progress happen more quickly, particularly in the areas that are key to society. The Oxford Martin School exists in order to grapple with the biggest challenges of the 21st century. And what we aim to do is bring great people together to think about this. In Oxford, we have about 350 people now in our community in interdisciplinary teams thinking about that. But part of our purpose also is to bring extraordinary people to Oxford that can help with these insights, and Garry certainly fits that bill. What the debate at the Union stimulated was a discussion between Garry and myself about how can we further this. And Garry, together with a number of others that he'll tell us about, is working on a book on this topic. So what we're doing these days is holding a series of workshops and this lecture to further this discussion. We very much hope that Garry will keep coming back to Oxford over the coming years to keep up this discussion. And so this is a part of a process, certainly not the end point. As many of you know, Garry is widely regarded as the best chess player ever in history, and remains so to this day. He was the youngest chess champion at the age of 22 in history. He ruled supreme for a very long time and retired in 2005 to more actively engage in his other interests. In 1986, when Garry was already the world chess champion, he displayed his innovation to me by bringing out a whole series of chess computers. And I've got a great picture of Garry in 1986 in his jumper, a young man, on the front of this, and I managed to just about beat him at level 1 and began to appreciate what extraordinary genius and inventiveness there was. And as he kept going on, he kept playing not only great players around the world, but also computers. And one of the computers that he played and in the end drew against, first having won against, was doing 3 million positions per second in its calculations. And that gives one some sense of his mental capacity. It is just a sort of extraordinary thing to get one's head around, that people are capable of this and of analyzing different positions and different options at that speed of processing. In addition to being a chess player, Garry has for a very long time been a political activist. He's recognized his power is not only on the board, but is also able to shift societies. And from 1990, when he was first involved in the opposition movements in Russia, he's remained active in the Russian Front and in the Other Russia party, which he leads. I got very nervous just before our Oxford Union debate to see on the news that he'd been arrested in the Pussy Riot protests and beaten up, in fact, in protesting for human rights in Russia, because I feared he wouldn't get to our debate, as well, of course, fearing for his own personal safety. But he's not nervous, so I'm sure he's nervous, but he does not resist putting himself on the line and at risk in order to further these causes. And in addition now, he's taken on what I think is a much more global challenge, which is, after his many, many books, over 20 books on chess, including his very interesting book on how life imitates chess, he's taken on the challenge of trying to think through how societies work and how we may accelerate innovation. So it's with enormous pleasure, Garry, that I invite you to the podium to share your thoughts with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here again. So the first time you invited me here could be a mistake. Now you agreed to bring me back, so and to continue this very exciting debate. And I have to tell you that I was lucky to get my UK visa at the last minute, because there are always formalities, even for the ex-world champions. At one point I was wondering whether only Russians that now can visit this country, those who are buying real estate and football teams. So as Ian just briefly said, the debate on November 9 we had in Oxford was all about innovation, and moreover about the role that innovation played and still playing in all different aspects of our society. So political, financial, on business, and of course on the relations between different groups of people and nations. Today I'll try to present my views and just part of the work I've been doing together with Peter Thiel and Max Levchin on the book, and hopefully the book will appear relatively soon. So. It's just the title of the speech is The Spirit of Innovations. Just let me make sure. While recently I spent a lot of time in America, and it's quite natural, we have been investigating the progress in the United States as being for a long time a pioneer and a leading force in innovations. So I was quite confused to hear that many Americans believe that the top UK product is Downton Abbey. But of course, long before Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Bill Gates, and others, there were Charles Babbage, Ada Lovelace, and of course, Alan Turing. And no doubt that we couldn't have Amazon, Google, Facebook, other great things without Tim Berners-Lee's World Wide Web. And just let's make sure that I don't miss slides. We all nowadays work with computers. You know, just we have them at our desk, our dining room, bedroom, and of course in our pocket. So I'm probably one of the few people who actually play computers. So not the probably most, not greatest experience in my life, but it was a very useful experience. And as a matter of fact, you know, just going back to my visits to this country, the first time I played in the UK was in 1983. And I played a semi-final match against Viktor Korchnoi on my way to conquering the title. And I think that very few people in this room can remember the name of the company that sponsored this competition. Which UK-based computer company in 1983 was a sponsor of the event? Acorn Computers. 8-bit machines. By the way, it was a shocking experience for me, because at that time, you know, it was just 1 year before Macintosh. So just in the Soviet Union, nobody ever heard of this. So we all thought about computers being something huge. And that was, it was still big by modern standards. I guess my kids would not believe it's a computer. They think it's a dinosaur, you know, from Newton's time. But it was a computer. It could do a lot of great things. It could play games. So I remember that's how I used it. And in 84, 85, you know, just I enjoyed it by pushing all the buttons and playing. If you remember the game called Hopper, a jumping frog. At one point, I thought I was a great expert because, you know, no one in my native town of Baku, you know, had a computer, so I was the champion by definition. And then I visited my friend, a computer expert in Germany, and I wanted to boast my ability to play this great game. And he asked about my result, and I said, okay, whatever the number was, 10,000. And he said, it's not good, so in our family, you wouldn't be a winner. I said, can you do that? He said, no, not me. Your wife? No. Your son? He was 10-year-old, Martin? I said, no. And look at the youngest one, Thomas, who was 3.5. I said, yes. And I remember how in about 5 minutes, my pride was totally, destroyed by the kid. So that's, 10 years later, I played Deep Blue, but as a matter of fact, first I played a computer called Deep Thought. It's just again, reminds certain elements of American politics, but it was Deep Thought. It was the product of the guys from Carnegie Mellon University. Later, this project was bought by IBM, and they just put it in the special, the parallel processors lab, and it came out as a Deep Blue. So in '89 it was easy. Just make sure that. In '96, it's amazingly, people always remember, what happened in '97. So when I lost the match. So, but I have to remind them all the time that in '96 I won the match. So it's, of course, after winning in '96 in Philadelphia and losing in New York, so I wanted to play a rubber match, but IBM decided to retire the computer. So and it was not an accident, with this Deep Blue. It was not just one match we just played. It's the computer chess already picked up the steam, and the man I just mentioned, my German friend, so he went on with his friends, and they came up with a chess base, the first database in chess. And again, this is very few can remember the name of the computer that was first used for chess database. Also starts with A. Atari. So it's just 27 years ago, but it's so antiquated. That was very sophisticated 16-bit computer at that time. Yeah. So I was really amazed by what this computer could do. So it's the first time we could have the games, not just only nodes, but just first time. And I also remember buying my first laptop, Compaq, in 1988. I think it was about 5 kilos. That you can kill people with that. But it was, it was expensive, but it was unique. So I was so proud. And after playing Deep Blue and just making the story worldwide, just when people talked about humanity, last frontier or whatever it is, so which I couldn't defend. So I just recognized that a lot of great things could happen. And one of the ideas I proposed after the match is just not to only play man versus machine, which I still believe could be a very important scientific and cultural and social experiment. Also, it's getting more and more difficult for us to fight the computers. But it's just bringing them together. It's just about looking for a most sophisticated form of making decisions, bringing together the brute force of calculation of the machine and our creativity. So what I call advanced chess, man plus machine. So where you could actually benefit from machines being so fast and seeing almost everything through, but adding your own creativity as a key factor for maximizing the effect of your decisions. Also, what was quite amazing that just when after my match with Deep Blue, many people believed that experiment was over. So it was very much in the opposite side from what was predicted by Alan Turing, who actually thought that for a machine to perform well in chess, it would require to become some sort of artificial intelligence. Deep Blue was exactly the opposite. I mean, it had no intelligence. It was just parallel processors, 256 processors, built in the pyramid. It's brute force of calculation. And I think that chess could offer much more than just simply calculating lines. Just to imagine that chess is literally mathematically infinite game. So the number of moves stands for insane number of 10 power 45. So just hopefully, not in the nearest future. When I say nearest future, I mean it's in millenniums. So we'll see machines playing E4 and declaring mate in 13,555 moves. Yeah. And just to wrap up the story of Deep Blue, and just to move to the subject of today's conversation. So as I mentioned, I wanted to play a rematch, or the rubber match, so just to prove that, the human's still capable of beating the silicon bind. But again, Deep Blue has disappeared. First I thought it was, directing lights in Philadelphia. No, it was wrong. So actually I found it many years later. So it's doing sushi in JFK Airport, in JetBlue terminal. I mean, I love sushi, but I never ate there. Yeah, and let's keep it there, so I like the picture. Actually, I used it in some of the IBM's lectures, and they all liked it also. Many people criticized me at that time that playing computer, it was huge risk. So it's not only personal risk, but also the risk of humanity, because many people took it very personal. How come that we are no longer dominant brain force on the planet? And I don't know why. Probably it's because of my playing style. So I always recognize that if you want to win, and moreover, if you want to make the difference, which was sort of my motto, it's not about winning the game only, but also to opening new horizons. You have to take risk. And risk means, you can fail. And this is, by the way, one of the fundamental issues we're going to discuss today, and that's very much in the core of our thesis in our book, is that we are growing as a risk-averse society. So risk becomes sort of a dangerous word. And so we're looking for safety nets, and we are afraid of failing. And again, I failed many times. So no doubt that if I could, rewrite my own biography, I know many points where I just could erase something or add a few letters here and there. Even a little comma can make a great deal of difference in your biography. But it is what it is. And recently, I wanted to understand the nature of this growing rejection of failure as inevitable part of success. And I did an engram. And it's an example, yes. That's what you do. It's Google Ngram search, and you look for, different words used in years, so in titles. And you could see what happens, So with timeline, things change. And that's one is interesting. So you could see 3 lines, and you can guess which one is blue line. One is invention, one is profit, and the blue line, you can guess, it's risk. And you see what's happened after in the early 70s. It jumped, which means that we discovered risk. And we got scared of that. So we keep talking about it, which means, we're trying to avoid it. Again, it's very natural because, being afraid of failure is part of human nature. So we all are afraid of making wrong move, making wrong prediction and failing. But the fear of failure cannot prevent us from moving. And I think that's what has been happening. Because when we start business, when we start something new, we're always looking at risk reduction. And we tend to forget that reducing risk means reducing benefits. Or we just have to come up with some artificial forms of compensating lack of risk with other means. And thinking about this, the overall development of human race and technologies, of course. I've been thinking about the way to present it in some sort of visual forward. And that's what I had in mind. It's very natural that, the development could be presented in the form of vertical and horizontal. And it's natural that we cannot go vertical all the time. So the question is, for how long we can stay on the horizontal development without running a huge risk, then the power of gravity will not let us change the mode of development. Now, of course, I'm probably trying to exaggerate things a bit when I say the vertical, it's creation, it's new, it's experimental, and of course it's risky. It means growth and jobs, while horizontal means incremental, existing, it's imitation, but of course it's safe. It offers revenue, but it also brings debt. Because as I said, if we're running out of these new great ideas, so we keep doing the same things, and while there are many options in the globalization, offered by globalization, at a certain point we're running out of these new instruments to compensate for the lack of creation and new and experimental things. Yeah, I mean, no doubt that every breakthrough technology can be presented in a form of incremental changes. Agreed. But it's just, as Schumpeter said once, you can add as many mail cars to a train, you will not invent locomotive. So it's again, following the same line of Schumpeter, is creative destruction. You just have to make sure that certain things have been literally destroyed just to move forward. And we'll understand that even if we come up with some great ideas, great new technologies, before these new ideas, before these new industries bring jobs, they destroy the existing industries. So you lose before you actually benefit, which is a natural process. And that's probably an explanation why things happen, big things happen during wars. Because during war, I mean, nobody can be concerned about paying very high price for innovations. You have to win the war. You have to come up with the best technologies. You have to make sacrifices. That's important. We have to make sacrifices. And when we look, at the progress in the 20th century, we could see that the wars, both wars, and the Cold War, which is also, an existential threat to the free world from communism, created a public demand for excellence, for moving forward with new ideas, no matter what the cost. I just wanted to have another, just least, and again, some may say it's exaggeration, it's maybe not, the perfect example of presenting, all these ideas, but again, I want to do it as a part of the big picture. And, that's the way I play chess, the way I try to analyze things, just always looking at the big picture and recognizing that what is the effect of your quiet move on the queen side on the king side development. So it's this time to travel, 200 miles. And we could see the development. And of course, 1969, that's definitely a point which, destroys the natural cause of the progress. 1969, it was a year of American landing on the moon, also the year of the first ARPANET signal, sent from UCLA to Stanford, but it was also a year of Concorde. And by the way, Boeing 747. So it was a great year. Since 1969, we are traveling from A to B slower, because Concorde was decommissioned in 2003. Again, some may say this is not a big argument. And while we have been talking, in the process of writing the book, we have been talking to people from Wall Street, from the Valley, Silicon Valley, from DC, from business firms. So we heard a bunch of arguments. And definitely one of the arguments is that what's the point of flying faster from from New York to LA, or from London to New York. Market is not ready to pay for that. It will just come later to the point, but let's hear that it's some people, just they believe that, we did it right when in late 60s we made a big decision. Actually, it was a really big decision. Whether we wanted to have faster planes or bigger and more comfortable. I mean, I can testify that modern planes are very comfortable. Yeah, we have much better seats. We have Wi-Fi, fuel efficiency, so it doesn't help with the prices, ticket prices, but it's all there. But just think for a moment that the planes that we're flying today, it's the same generation, the same family as Boeing 747. All the Dreamliners, they are basically the same planes. Again, fuel efficiency, comfortable seats, but the same speed and the same structures. And when you look at the projections made by Airbus and Boeing for 2029, they have thousands of planes that are just, already, being sold to different airlines, which means that my grandchildren will be flying literally the same planes as my grandparents. I think there's something wrong with this. Again, I cannot prove that that solves, our debate, but I think there's something wrong with it. And let's look at the speed of information. And by the way, here there are no hiccups. It all grows up. It has been growing. So 1844, telegraph. So when we ended up now with, some unimaginable numbers. So what is happening now with with this progress? Because the companies, they're naturally afraid of taking risk. And when we look at some great names, the symbols of innovations, take Apple. Apple is sitting today on 120-something billion dollars of cash, with R&D under 2%. So how come? And you can just add, names to the list. So why we do not see new great ideas? Google probably has, the highest IQ, average IQ, among any corporation in the Silicon Valley. There are 26,000 people working there. So can you just come up with, instantly, with a name of new inventions after the initial algorithm? So this, again, I want to open up a debate just to understand that this is something wrong. Maybe even fundamentally wrong. But we just have to address the issue. And we have to look back to understand that this progress, was quite amazing. And when we say, no, it's very natural developments, and sometimes, we go vertical, then it go horizontal. But we are staying horizontal for too long. They're roughly, and again, it's very roughly because there's no proper scientific research, there are roughly 25 years of the period from the invention, or we make an inception of the idea, invention, to the, call it, mass market. Now, can you pick up something that was invented in mid-80s and now is in mass market? Just don't say mobile phones or internet. So the foundation for the internet was made by Americans as a byproduct of space race. It's Defense Advanced Research Project Agency in early 60s. In 1962, there was a fundamental scientific work on packet switching by Professor Leonard Kleinrock. In 1963, DARPA magazine described almost every element of modern internet, including Skype, voice over IP. And as I already mentioned, on October 29, 1969, the lab run by the same Professor Kleinrock sent a first signal from UCLA to Stanford. Yes, it was ARPANET. Yes, it was not, yet ready for mass production, but it was already, the foundation was there. And again, it was a byproduct. So it's just many things that happened over the 60s. They were not even predicted. So when Americans prepared for the moon landing, so as JFK said in his famous speech, so there were probably will require metals that not yet invented. So just recognizing that certain things happen as side effects, and that's probably the most important thing that we can learn from these, some say, projects that had no real ground effect, so effect on the ground, on Earth. Today, many people tell us that financing space programs is just a waste of money. So what can you get there? So it's a base on the moon or flying to Mars. And it's 1989, that was a year when American US Congress killed the last major initiative, space initiative. It was called Space Exploration Initiative, proposed by Bush 41, and it was, by the opinion of the Congress, too expensive. The cost of the program, 30-year program, which, as NASA hoped, would end with mission on Mars, manned mission on Mars, was $500 billion. It's about half what Mr. Bernanke prints every year. I think that, again, it's very important. So when we say NASA was too expensive, yes, the overall budget of NASA over 55 years is about $750 billion. It's a great deal of money, yes, correct. It's just a bit more than Pentagon spends every year now. And we own almost everything. So we just, all the technologies today, they are, as I said already, byproducts of this space race. And while doing lectures and public presentations, I always look at Wikipedia now. We'll always have to benefit from the modern technologies and ability to collect information. And I always look for data history, just to find out something that is relevant for the day we meet and we talk. And almost 80 years ago, exactly on that date, February 28th, 1965, Wallace Carothers, who worked at DuPont experimental labs, came up with a nylon. It's hard to imagine the importance. It was a revolution. And what's amazing, that it was not something that DuPont had in mind when they decided to pour tons of money into the experimental lab by a scientist who couldn't come up with a business plan. I don't think that today Carothers could attract a penny, neither from DuPont or from a venture capital. And let's not forget, they did it at the time of the Great Depression. So for years, they have been doing, they're financing something that had no immediate business effect. Ended up with nylon, and it just opened a brand new era. And here is just the way it was described. No practical objective in mind. I think it's just, you would be insane of coming up with a proposal that has this kind of objective, or lack of objective. But that's how world has changed. And again, it brings us back to the risk and a failure. So this is all this combination. What are the chances of the great explorers to succeed? I remember once I spoke at University of Porto in Portugal, and it was an MBA group, and the name of the group was Magellan. And it was 3 years ago, so at that time people were less convinced that something was wrong with global economy and with our society, and they looked very skeptical. And I asked them, look, guys, there's about 150 grown-ups. Are you sure that, you are willing today to finance a risky venture? Just imagine Fernando Magellan himself walks into the room and comes up with his plan. What are his chances of getting a penny out of you? Your problem is that most likely your reaction, let's run a focus group. The problem is that in the beginning of the 16th century, every focus group will tell you the Earth was flat. And again, it may not be the right argument because we are far more educated, but at the same time, it's not about education. It's about us to believe in some certain fundamentals, the fundamentals of free market and capitalism. And for centuries, we knew that the whole idea of credit as a part of the system was to finance something risky. And you can win, you can lose, so up to you to make all the difference. I think the Adam Smith would be stunned to hear that in modern capitalism, the size of the corporation offers immunity against bankruptcy. I mean, too big to fail is a blasphemy for the free market. But that's something that happens all the time. And why? Because we want to preserve status quo. Because we're afraid that, if we move too far, things can change, and it might be too much for us to digest. And some people say, all we say about innovations and the breakthrough innovations and these new technologies, yes, but we live in a world where all the easy things have been invented. We have picked up all low-hanging fruits. Low-hanging fruits. You're telling me that nuclear project was low-hanging fruit. It was not even ripe at the time when Einstein wrote the letter to President Roosevelt. Are you telling me that the Soviet Sputnik, or Alan Turing computer, or moon landing, those were low-hanging fruits? At his speech at Rice Stadium, JFK said that we choose to go to the moon and to do other things in this decade, not because they're easy, but because they're hard. And they knew that taking a risk was inevitable. It's hard to imagine for modern politicians making hard decisions that were made in the past, where statesmen were ready to take a challenge and just to sort of carry responsibility. And it's going back in planes. It's this the story I mentioned about our friend from business world, who keeps telling me that I would not pay for this very 1-hour flight from New York to LA. Might be too expensive. Market wouldn't bear it. That's his reaction. And that's not even chicken and egg. That's a vicious circle. Actually, it's reversed order. Market cannot predict what's going to work or not. Market could make corrections. But expecting market to tell you what's right, and what's wrong, it just brings us to this stalemate. I mean, I understand that the role of the market in evaluating the great ideas. And if you have 10 projects, with the new planes or whatever, these projects, none of them can fail. And that's natural. One will succeed, and that will be it. But trying to actually predict what's going to work and not, brings us to a situation where the most lucrative business in Silicon Valley might be working for iPad applications. Okay, iPad is a great innovation. And by the way, Steve Jobs never trusted focus groups. He believed he knew better. And, he made a great deal of difference. I wouldn't still call it a breakthrough innovation, because the newest detail on iPad, if you just divide it into the elements, was invented in 1981. But it's a very important new tool, and I use it. It's very comfortable. And again, it's a result of a genius who didn't wait for market to indicate what was expected by the crowd. So he came up, and he succeeded. And just as the book was mentioned here, here I was with Peter till on number 9, we did this debate, and the man who is working with me and who will be co-author of the book is Max Levchin, who was behind PayPal, just literally invented it. Also the vice president at technology in Google. He was the chairman of the board of Yelp, and now a member of the board of Yahoo, so pretty good Silicon Valley credentials. And we have been looking at the current progress, if you may call it progress, and we're not happy with that. And again, we understand that there's certain things you cannot break up instantly, because it's very much part of our culture. So that's why we decided that we use technology and the debate about technology to look at all the implications. So we want to analyze the effect of what we believe is a slowdown in technology to politics, to business, to finance, and to social issues. And as I already mentioned, in the financial world, if you keep using credit to maintain your living standards, it's a recipe for the bubble, because credit is risky by definition. So we are creating society where credit is a sort of inevitable part of preserving status quo. And I think it's part of, again, as our fear to upset status quo. And it brings us to sort of the end of this argument, that we think that many problems we're facing today, they're part of us getting more conservative, which is probably more natural. So this audience is young, so but the world is ruled by baby boomers. And they want safety. They want social security. And by the way, you will pay for that. I mean, I'm not trying to incite hatred among generations, but that's a fact. The debt, the growing debt means that one day someone will have to pick up the bill. And it will be new generation. It doesn't work other way. And I think that before we actually reach this point when we'll have to pay these old bills, we'd better understand the nature of certain mistakes. Or maybe not mistakes, maybe those decisions were inevitable. Because, we are growing. The human race is quite young by the Earth standards. But we didn't have enough information to actually understand the effect of aging generation, of our demand to improve our living standards almost on a yearly basis. And it brings us back to the 60s. And this is something that I also wanted to show. It's 1969, again, the moon landing. And what you see on the picture on the left is a lab, IBM lab. 3,500 IBMers worked at NASA. Now, it's a trivia, but it's just, I'm stunned to see that people are amazed to learn that the entire computing power of NASA at that time was the size of your smartphone. The entire computing power of NASA. And that's, that tells you whether, things are more difficult today. That's a response to this popular argument that, things are so complicated. They're so difficult. And, you can't come up with the same inventions. Yes, it's more difficult. But don't tell me that there's certain diseases today are more difficult to treat than tuberculosis or polio. And we have more power. And it depends very much, on our ability to use this power productively. So with this smartphone, with the power of this smartphone, you have a choice. You can throw man to the moon, and bring him back safely to Earth. Or you can keep throwing birds at pigs. I'm not sure I know the answers for the questions I raised. It's all about, opening up a debate. It's like, call me a whistleblower. But looking back at the 60s, 50s and 60s, I discovered certain things that are just very much part of our mentality, of just changing the public mind. What we saw over these decades is just a disappearance of science fiction as a genre, a positive view of the future. So now what we're seeing is more of a dystopia of the Terminators, of the threat, potential threat to our future. And it's probably, it reflects that, we are afraid, instinctively afraid to touch the progress. We see the negatives. There are negatives. No doubt, just look at the history. So every great invention most likely was used first for destruction. That's what happens. But you can't stop it, unless you're willing to pay the price for slowing down and creating these bubbles. In mid-60s, people had big dreams. In 1966 was the first Star Trek movie. The story was 1996, us flying to Alpha Centauri. In 1996, what we got? Credit default swaps. Instead of having more space engineers, we got financial engineers. No offense meant. But I'm not sure, it creates the image of the future world we had in our dreams. I made a little experiment. I spoke to people who were grown up in mid-60s, Americans, who could hear or who heard Martin Luther King, people who could feel the atmosphere of American society of that time. The society that was trying to land on the moon and also was deeply engaged in fighting for human rights. And I asked them a question. I said, look, if somebody at that time, late 60s, would tell you that you could bet your money on one of two things that would happen, one of them would happen. Americans landing on Mars, or black president in the White House. And they said it would be no-brainer. 100 to 1 we would bet on Mars landing. It didn't happen. Why? Again, maybe it was inevitable. But the energy of the society moved in a different direction. It was very important, absolutely. Segregation, emancipation. People wanted to fix social ills, and they succeeded. Barack Obama is the result of the society making impossible a reality. But there was a cost. So we wanted to eliminate the risk and just to be on the safe side. And now I think it's time to go back and just to analyze these things we did. Again, it's water on the bridge. It's done. We have plenty of experience. We can analyze it. And I think we should remember that it's all possible. And the answer is inside of us. And that's why I hope I can defend a title, new title for our book against all the publishers' demand. I want to call it Do You Have a Dream? Because we all must have a dream. And I believe that if we have a dream, and if we work hard towards the dream, it will happen. We already made huge progress improving human nature. And now it's time to open new horizons. So we have plenty of opportunities. Instead of going flat, we have a choice of going up into space. We have a choice of exploring the oceans, going deep down. There are plenty of opportunities. And I believe it's for you to make this difference. And I'm sure that my grandchildren will not be flying the same planes as my grandparents. Thank you.